And let me just say that the feedback that I'm hearing as I crisscrossed the county and just coming out of an election and received 218,338 votes. What I've been hearing from people is that they don't want a behind the scenes, behind the curtain, closed door negotiation. What I've heard, whether I'm at Pleasant Ridge Chili and just trying to get some chili, can't get the chili without someone saying, don't let us get screwed this time. Can't go to Red Squirrel in Coleraine Township. I was leaving there, and the guy stopped me and said, you're that Alicia Reece? I said, yes, sir. He says, stand up for us. We got screwed in this lease. And he even said what's going to happen is that people are going to move out of Hamilton County. That's what's going to happen. I told him, hang on. Or whether I'm out supporting a small business, trying to have a nice, get my nails done and relax. Couldn't relax to get my feet done. A lady sits right next to me, and she wants to go into the details of the lease. She said, I'm a fan, but I don't want to pay, and I don't want that bad lease. So this is a topic. We had a commissioner, the late Todd Pertune, that's what he ran on, was this bad lease. And the people elected him because this was a bad lease. Now the people went to the polls and said, hey, we would like to have 2 stadiums, and they voted for 2 stadiums. And they're fine with that. Where they feel they got screwed is the process of where we're at right now, is the lease. And so we have to really deal with the elephant in the room. We've been all over the place, and then we end up with a headline that says Hamilton County trade default charges, but then says the team declared stadium talks useless. They said the talks have been useless. Now, the 3 of us, we're not allowed, and we haven't been in all the talks. I haven't been at the coffee tables and the meetings over here, and I'm reading some of the emails like the people are reading the emails when they got a public records request. And so they're saying it's useless. The public is saying we got to get something different. And so we've got to get down to the real business, which is the lease. It's not the stadium. It's not what the stadium's going to look like. Now, we have to deal with the bare bones, and I think we don't have to have a negotiation to go over there and make sure that the elevators are working and the escalators are working. That should be done immediately. But as far as what is it going to look like, I don't want to, if they saying it's useless, I don't want to be running with an exercise of pretty pictures, and they saying it's useless. So I wanted to identify to the public, most people in the public have never had a chance to read this lease. They have not had a chance to read the lease. And they know it's bad, but they don't know how bad. In this lease, there's a lot of things that we're talking about that currently cannot be done. We are bound by this lease. If they want to do 2 more years, then another 2 more years, they can do it for 5 times. And wait to the last second and have us running around in circles, ring around the rosies. So there's a couple things that I wanted to point out to the public that our administrator has pointed out, I think is important in our board. Our board has taken the time to say, let's get down to the lease. They put together a framework to say, let's get down to the lease. Let's don't wait to the final seconds. Don't let the clock run out. Let's get down to the lease. According to this, it says September 17th of 2024. So how can the county be unwilling to negotiate if we put together a framework? And the 3 of us had input on it and said, let's get it going. And I'll be honest with you, I was on the administrator. He could tell you, I said, drop it off. Get it to them. I don't care if you got to ride the bicycle, the carrier, hand it to them so we can get started. So that's number 1, that we did send a framework on September 17th, 2024, We understand this ain't the final, but our board said, hey, let's sit down and get busy. This could get us started and looking in some things as it relates to the lease. Now, I want to be clear. I am a Bengals fan. I would love for us to have been going to the Super Bowl right now, still be playing. However, I'm elected as a negotiator on behalf of the taxpayers. So when people say, where are the two sides? Well, there's the taxpayer side. That's what we're supposed to be elected to represent. And I'm not mad at the Bengals. They got their lawyers that are paid to represent them. And in the last negotiation, the taxpayers lost. We lost. And so over here, we're trying to get a win-win. I was trained by Procter & Gamble as an intern. They said, try to get to the win-win, but not to the point where my client, the taxpayers, take a loss. We are in a lease right now where the majority funder, almost 90% or more, is the taxpayers. That would be called shareholders. But on the revenue side, the taxpayers are not in on the revenue side of anything. We know that this lease represents money because we had a Forbes, I don't control Forbes, Forbes had 400 of the richest people in the country. And only one was listed from Cincinnati and Hamilton County. It was the owner of the Bengals, who only has the Bengals. So we know there's some money in this lease. We know there's some money in this lease. This lease is upside down. This is not personal. It's not personal. When a lawyer comes in, they got to represent their client. It's not personal. We're trying to get out of an upside down lease. Everything else is irrelevant. Because if we do anything, we presented it, we tried to work. We worked with the Bengals, and they came and they presented what could be done with the stadium and all those pretty pictures. But when you get to the pretty pictures, we have a team that doesn't even want to give a free watch party. So do we think they're going to do something else free for the people? They never want to do nothing free for the people. We came with a watch party and said, let's do it for the people. I came with it. And they said no, claimed the NFL told them no. I never got nothing from the NFL. I got something from their ownership. Came back with the same idea and said, we're going to do it, but now you got to pay to get in there. Didn't even want to give the people a free watch party. And you think they're going to give us some screens with a free game? Well, go to their lease. There's a section in the lease that said that they control all screens indoor and outdoor. So you think I want to give them some more screens? No, I don't. I'm trying to get something for the taxpayers. Now, that's what our goal was, but that's not their goal. Then we came back and said, hey, we'd like to get, in here, paying of the rent. They quit paying rent. They've been quit paying rent. In this lease, they only had to pay the first 9 years, according to this year. And it went down every year. How many people renting right now and your rent is going down? Grandma and grandpa right now, single mom right now, mom and dad family right now, what rent is going down? And here, they only had to pay the first 9 years. And the last rent, the 9th year, was only $900,000. Now, Mr. Ludo can add to that. They put a little surcharge on everybody going to the game. And there's a little surcharge that comes back to the county. The surcharge usually is about 100-something thousand. They send a big bold letter. Here's a check for 100-something thousand. But when we go to the rental section of the lease, according to this lease, it costs $100,000 a day to rent the place. $100,000 a day. So the check would be short if we were charging a rental, but we're not. In here, it even talks about taxes. Right now, we're in tax season. People are struggling right now with their property taxes. Property taxes have gone up, right? People crying, trying to hold on to their house. There's a section on taxes. It says if at any time during the term of this project if the project is not exempt from the imposition of real estate taxes and personal property taxes, the parties, I don't know who signed this, those other commissioners, it wasn't us, we wasn't here. The parties agree that such imposition shall be paid by who? The county, the taxpayers in Hamilton County. So they're not even paying no taxes. Then they went to the state on us. And this just tells you about when they say it's useless. I'm almost saying it's useless because you went to the state behind our back, not like Cleveland, who went to the state and said, we need to get some money to build and pay and take some of this burden off the local taxpayers. We went to the governor to say, hey, make sure that we're included. You weren't interested in that. You went behind our backs and got yourself exempt from paying any taxes on anything that you do for an upgrade. Now, we can't get exempt if we go to the grocery store right now and buy the eggs that's high. We got to pay the sales tax. They went and got exempt. So they're exempt from real estate taxes that's in this lease. Then went behind our back as a board. We were trying to work together. We just did $39 million with you on renovations of the seats. We thought we was working together. You went behind the backs of the taxpayers and got yourself exempt from any taxes on any type of upgrade you want to make. So we are going in the wrong direction. So I just wanted to, these are just some things. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. We're trying to work out of this lopsided lease. It's very difficult because if you're on their side, if I was representing them, I'm going to hug this lease. You can't get this lease nowhere in America. No other team has this lease. If you go somewhere else, they're going to want 33 to 30% that you got to put in on the building. We're the only place what they call no money down. Now, why would you leave no money down and just out of the goodness of your heart say you're going to put some money down? It's going to have to be a negotiation, and it might get a little dicey at first. But I'm hopeful that we can get to an agreement. But yeah, Section 9.3 of the lease says exterior signs. Teams shall control all advertising on or outside of the structure of the stadium complex, and even goes into stadium parking facility, including without limitation on any external messaging board. So when they showed on here, on our PowerPoint, it had Skyline on there. I love Skyline, but they got paid. The taxpayers didn't get a dime. They control it all. So we would have to make some changes, and that's what I would think our board would try to do, is make some changes and say, how can we share the revenue, reduce the costs, and work together on a better deal. Naming rights, there's a whole section on it, page 37. We didn't even know about the naming right. We've been asking and begging and can't get no information on our own building. The taxpayer own a building and we can't. Can you imagine a landlord, you put some names on something and the landlord don't know nothing about it? And then when the landlord show up, you the renter, tell the landlord, I ain't got to tell you nothing. Naming rights, we had to find out about it in a sales agreement. In a sales agreement. Paycor, selling their company, got more information than the taxpayers who owns the building over there. I mean, come on. We got to have a better relationship. We're trying to get to a win-win. But the taxpayers can't take a dive. So if I was them, I probably would do the extension. I wouldn't want to get a new lease because they got everything covered. Utilities. We just had the seniors council on aging just came in here. Seniors can barely pay to keep the heat on. Well, I'll tell you whose heat we is keeping on, the taxpayers. There's a section 11.4, page 39 in this lease. County shall provide for and shall purchase and pay for all utility services, including but not limited to, check this out, heat, light, water, air conditioning, sewer, gas, electricity, cable, satellite television, telephone, telecommunications, and the list goes on. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is, to me, the number one issue is this lease. And I would hope that we could get in a, well, we can't do it, but our people could get in a room, come back with some changes to this lease, have a win-win, and be able to present this to the taxpayers. Now, will that be easy? No. Because if I'm them, I'm hugging to the zero down. I'm hugging to give me all the resources. I'm hugging this lease. I would tell you, what's wrong with this lease? This is a good deal. But the taxpayers did speak. They did go to have 2 stadiums, but they never voted for this. And this is what they're angry about. So we're trying our hardest, and I don't want to speak for them. I'm sure they are, but I would say this. I'm going to try my hardest to see if we can get a better deal. So the question is, has the county presented something? Mr. Ludo said, yes, they did on September 17th, 2024. I don't know about these emails. I got them like you got them. So I don't know about the conversations there. But I do know what we approved was this. And I do know that it's time for us to really bear down, because nothing you change, you build, you add, it's all in this lease. And we can't build another thing until we straighten out the relationship contractually between the taxpayers and the Bengal ownership to get a win-win. Other cities are paying for upgrades. Other cities are paying and trying to take maintenance off the table. Other deals. We see people trying to work together. And I will say this, this is my position. I don't want to interpret what the taxpayers want to do and don't want to do. I'm willing to take it to the ballot and hear directly from the taxpayers. That way we don't have to guess. We can make sure we're doing exactly what they want, but they have to be educated on this lease. It has to be what this lease is in it. Is this what you want to pay? Is this what you want to do? And if they say yes, I'm willing to live with it. So if we get to that, if they want to know what do the people say, I'm willing to go directly to it. So again, we've got management, we've got revenue, and just like it was said earlier, we could do all of this and they only have to give us maybe, is it 60 days, 30 days to say they're going to extend it? What's the timeline?
They have until, I think it's June 30th of this year, so it's a year in advance of extending the lease.
Okay. And our goal is we're trying to work as much as we can to see if we can get a new lease, but understand, public, there was a board before us, and the names were Bettinghouse, Dowling, and Nyer. It was not Reese, Driehaus, and Dumas. What they signed is decades. And if they decide to extend this, it's really not much we can do. But we're doing all that we can. So I wanted to say that because I know there was headlines and all kind of stuff, and people were asking me what's going on. But I wanted people to know, and I thank you for that. And I think the more we stay out in the public, the more the public can follow along and make their own decisions and understand what we're doing. So thank you for the presentation and the update. And where are we now? Do they have it? Do they have the framework? Not the lawyers, but the owners.
The team has that framework, Commissioner. As I indicated, where we are now is we've had several high-level meetings with the team where we've talked about getting on the same page on renovation priorities. We have staff that are going to meet to make sure that we are looking at the proposed renovation plans in terms of what actually needs to happen and when, so they can advise myself, I can advise the board, their team can advise team leadership, and then we'll get back together and figure out, based upon that prioritization, what does the actual scope of a prioritized renovation look like? What does that mean in terms of applicable funding from all the different parties? And then obviously in concert with a lease as well. So
how is that different from what you've been doing? Because they have all these, I mean, they have some strong emails on you.
How is it different than what?
Yes, how's it different?
Well, I think the main issue in the past has been that we have said from the beginning that we can't really start these formal discussions and detailed discussions until we had the facility condition assessment and the master plan together. Those are if you're going to build a house, you need to know what the plan is. You need to know what the vision is. We said we can't sit down and figure out what the plan is until we've got those documents in front of us. We received those all last year. So we have the facility condition assessment, which is the core basic maintenance work, and the master plan. We received all that by late last year. Indicated that we are ready to have those discussions. The team indicated that they wanted to wait until after the season. So now we are doing those. So that's what's really changed from maybe back in the past when some of these other communications were flying, was the team wanted to make progress right then. We said we can't do that until we know what we are shooting for. We can't do that until we know what the plan is. And so that's the difference and the change in terms of where we are now. We actually have that plan, have something to work from.
Yeah, and the season definitely is over. So when do we move to the lease? we keep putting the lease, kicking it down the can.
We have indicated that we need to have simultaneous discussions on the lease itself.
Okay, and then one of the things I'd ask for you to present to us kind of a timetable so we can present it to the public. Where are we on that?
Yeah, so I want to get with the board on that just because I want to be very careful about a timetable, because when you're in a negotiation, there are two parties, and whereas we may think that this is the time, we can say very specifically what the timing is as it relates to when the Bengals have to give notice, when the lease expires. But if I give a deadline for a certain issue that is a board priority, that also means that the team has to respond to that as well. And so I want to work through that timeline in accordance with what the board thinks is important, what you want to show publicly.
Okay. Well, my last thing I just want to say is I don't want to be finding out about emails and all that in public records. I don't want to be responding to news, because people think, aren't you down there? Did I elect you to be down there? What are y'all down there for, reading in the newspaper? There's a lot of meetings been going on, and we have not been in them. There's a lot of conversations that's been had, a lot of emails, a lot of coffees and all that. I want to, and then they jump up and say it's useless. And I didn't even know what was you meeting about. So we do have the overall thing, but there's a lot, when I read in here, there's a lot of stuff I didn't get until they asked for the public records. So I think we just need to have a better handle on where we're going. And for me, I think all these coffees and can you meet real quick and can I talk to you for a second? All that stuff, we need to be talking about the things that we've been meeting and trying to meet about. The framework, if you gave it to them in September, we should have some kind of conversation about it. So that's why I wanted to have some kind of time frame so that we can hopefully avoid just a bunch of emails that come out. And I wasn't, maybe others were familiar with them. I wasn't familiar with them. And, to get some kind of structure.